Hello everyone and welcome back to England. Yes, so we're in a slightly different place. Last time we were in Bristol, which is a popular city in the southwest of England. And here we are in Ambleside, which is a small town in the Lake District. So it's a very different vibe. The Lake District is in the north of England. It's just south of Scotland. And it's a beautiful place. It's mainly known for its nature, as you can probably tell from the mountains in the background. And that's primarily what we're going to be focusing on in this video. Well, this video is actually split into two different parts. So firstly, right, so we have like the recording of the village on this beautiful sunny day. And that's what you're going to be seeing at the start. That's kind of part one of the video. So I wasn't planning on filming this. Basically, I was in Ambleside for about a week and I arrived on a Monday, I think. And then on the Tuesday, it was at about 1 p.m. And I was very tired because it had been a long journey. And it was sunny outside, as you can see. And I checked the weather and this was the last time it was going to be sunny for the rest of the week. Okay? So I was really not in the mood to film because I was knackered. But I was like, I just couldn't not do it because I knew that I wanted to do a walk and talk episode here, and I feel like the footage looks a lot nicer in the sun, so I picked up my camera, I picked up my weird tripod thing, and I just left my house and started recording, so there we are. And I only had enough time to film the village in the sun. Unfortunately, I wasn't really able to get much of the nature. So the next day, I rushed out and I made sure to get some footage of the nature. The weather isn't as nice, but yeah, that's going to be part two of the video. It's a slightly different vibe. It's a bit more chaotic, but yeah, that's all part of the fun. Anyway, this is Ambleside. Look how beautiful those doors are. A teal door. How often do you see that? And you're probably starting to get a bit of a vibe as to what Ambleside is like. Very unique, very quaint and old, because Ambleside is an extremely old village. Well, I think it's actually a town, technically. I'm not too sure what the difference is between a town and a village, but the point is, it's very old. It has very nice teal doors. And another thing about Ambleside, as you will soon be able to see, is that it's kind of, everything's made of stone. Like, you see what I mean? Like, very obvious. The whole aesthetic is very stony. And I mean, you can tell from the buildings, right? And it's especially, look at this, look on the left, the bin is tucked away behind a stone barricade. Have you ever seen that before? It's so cool. Right, so this is the center of the town. I need to stop calling it a village. What is the difference between a town and a village? Maybe I'll look that up later. Anyway, this is the town, and here we have Greggs. Yeah, so as mentioned in the previous video, oh, it's a dog. As mentioned in the previous video, yeah, I wasn't, because from when I was approaching that dog, I didn't realize there was the owner there. I thought it was just standing very still. So I was kind of surprised when I saw a human next to it. Anyway, I got completely distracted then. We just passed a Greggs. And as mentioned in the previous video, Greggs is the most popular food chain in the whole of the UK. So it has more locations than any other food chain, more than McDonald's, more than Subway, more than Burger King, more than KFC, which I still can't wrap my head around that. I think it's absolutely obscene. Not in a bad way, because Greggs is a brilliant place. I definitely recommend going there. But from a southern point of view, I just couldn't imagine that there are more Greggs than any other food chains, more than McDonald's. Isn't that crazy? I wouldn't be surprised if you hadn't heard of Greggs, but of course you've heard of McDonald's, but I guess it's not as international. But if you come to the UK, you will see Greggs everywhere. Sorry, that was a tangent. By the way, if you're new here, if this is the first video you've watched, basically I'm just going to be walking around showing you some footage whilst hitting you with some random British English, and I want you to see how much of it you can understand. Right, if you look to your... My name is Dylan, by the way. If you look to your right, this is how the pubs and the bars actually get the barrels of beer. They have those small shutter things on the pavement so that the people in the vans pull over, get the barrels of beer and roll them down there. Okay, yeah, so this is the thriving town, not village, of Ambleside. That is a bird, a northern bird. No doubt will end up in Greggs very soon. I'm joking. They only sell bird, or do they? And this is a Tesco. and Tesco is probably my favourite supermarket chain in the UK. It may well be the most popular, actually. I haven't looked at that, but Tesco is sort of the classic. There are okay, I'm not going to waste this video talking about supermarkets in the UK, so what shall we talk about? Well, as mentioned, I wasn't really planning on filming this on that particular day. It was just sunny, so it was very much a spur-of-the-moment decision. And if something is spur of the moment, that's an adjective we use when something is done without planning in advance. So it's very impulsive, right? And I wasn't planning on getting the nature footage the next day either. But then I looked through this footage and I was like, yeah, it's nice and it's sunny and it looks quite aesthetic, but there are loads of cars, firstly. There are too many cars in this video, as you'll see. There's also loads of sheep in the Lake District, so there's lots of sheep merch. If you are a sheep person, I would definitely recommend visiting here. I'd recommend visiting anyway, if you like nature or quaint little villages, not towns. No, wait, towns, not villages. Oh, God, I'm making a mess of this. So yeah, I was looking through the footage and I just thought it was a shame not to show any nature because the Lake District is predominantly known for its nature. So what's it actually like living in Ambleside? Because I lived here for a few months about 3 years ago. And yeah, it's an interesting one. This was before the YouTube. This is when I was doing my gene making business. And in general, I'd say it's great. It's a great place to live. There's lots of nature, as you can see. So if you're into that type of thing, then it's perfect for you. But as with any small rural-ish town, not village, it can get a bit boring, and it's also quite hard to work because there aren't really work vibes here. You know, when you go into certain places, normally capital cities, but not always, and you can just tell there's a real hustle culture. Okay, so if you go into Toronto, for example, or London, or probably New York, I'd imagine, when you get there, you kind of like, it's quite corporate and it's like go, 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 go. And it makes you want to work. It makes you feel motivated. And Ambleside is the complete opposite of that. So if you are looking to work whilst you're here, yeah, I mean, good luck with that because you're probably just going to end up abandoning your work and climbing up a mountain or something like that, which is much more enjoyable, let's be honest. But if you're just going on holiday here, then that's perfect. So it's beautiful. The air is really, really clean and crisp, especially in winter. The tap water here is delicious because I'm not too sure actually. It probably is the same with your country, but in the UK, the taste of the tap water varies massively depending on whereabouts you are. In general, from my experience, I'd say in the north of England, the tap water is nicer. And in the south, it's not really for me personally. I'll still drink it, but I much prefer the taste of the tap water in the north. And in the Lake District, it's so nice because it's quite relatively unpolluted at this stage. So yeah, if you move to this place or if you go here, you're going to turn into a nature person. Okay, and probably a sheep person as well because there are so many sheep in Ambleside. It's brilliant. And this is an example of how your location and your environment has such a big influence on your personality. Yeah, so those are the pros. The cons, firstly, everything is kind of far away. For example, the closest gym to here is about maybe a 15-minute drive or a 20-minute bus journey. I mean, look at that football pitch as well. Imagine playing football there and with the mountains in the background. And I was actually, a few days after this, I was walking through this park and there was snow on the top of the mountains. I'll put a photo on the screen if I remember to take one. Anyway, the cons. So yeah, things are kind of far away. It can be a bit awkward. And if you want to go to a city, it's slightly, there aren't many active popular cities around. I'd say the most lively city that you've probably heard of closest to Ambleside is Manchester. And I think that's about maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours on the train. It's not too bad, but it depends on what you're looking for. As you can probably tell, this isn't really the type of place where you're going to go out and go to all these different bars and restaurants and stay out till 5 a.m. shopping or whatever city people do. But it's a very different vibe, a very pleasant vibe nonetheless. So that's a negative, I would say, really. If you're living here, if you're on holiday here, I think it's different, but I'm just going from a living here point of view. Another negative is the number of tourists here. Yeah, so obviously at the moment, this was shot in February and it was freezing cold. So there aren't many tourists here, but in the summer, it does get quite bad. And I'm not someone who just hates on tourism. Of course, I think it's important for a lot of places. But here it's tourists galore, okay? And if you say that there is something galore, it means that there is a lot of it, right? So the reason why I'm not so fond of the tourists here is because, firstly, it's extremely busy and there are even more cars than usual. When we were walking through the town, you may have noticed how many cars there actually were here. Yeah, this is going to be a common theme throughout this video, by the way. Me trying to throw something into that bear's mouth. Imagine just going down into the park, taking your kids to the park at 1 or 2 p.m. in the afternoon. And it's completely empty apart from just one strange man filming himself trying to throw sticks into the bear's mouth or going on this, I don't even know what you'd call this, to be honest, but it's good. It's good for recording. I can't resist stuff like this. The inner child comes out in me. Yeah, good times. Anyway, tourists. Normally they're okay, but because it's quite small, you do tend to notice when there are a lot of tourists, right? And unfortunately, most of them are fine, as I say, but some of them are quite disrespectful in the sense that they will drop their litter. And that's bad anywhere, especially in a place like this, which is very much nature focused. And that, I just feel like this deserves even more respect than a busy city because look around, it's beautiful. There's nature everywhere. It just feels as if it feels so wrong to disrespect this place by leaving around your empty packet of Walkers or your empty Coke bottle. You know what I mean? And it's disheartening when you're walking up a mountain and you see some selfish, insert swear word, whichever one you want, has just left the remnants of their packed lunch on the side of the mountain. It's just terrible. You hate to see it. Not everyone is like that. I know I've said that a million times, but I think it is important. But that does tend to be tourists. I doubt any locals are leaving their meal deal wrappers on the side of the street or in nature. It's just so disrespectful, and you wouldn't really be doing that anyway. So yeah, this does create this weird, almost resentment between the locals and the tourists. And I feel like normally there is this dichotomy in touristy places, and that's a good word, by the way, so a dichotomy. And that is when there are two contrasting things that exist at the same time. So, for example, certain places need tourists. Spain, right? So not all of Spain, but some parts in Spain, they are reliant on tourists. Yet they complain, understandably, they complain when they have a bunch of drunks from the UK being loud and not speaking any Spanish and just thinking that they own the place and just in general making it hell for the locals. I do completely understand that. But there are quite a few, well, I don't know if there are quite a few, but there was certainly one town or city in Spain. I will try and find the name of it and put it on the screen now. Yeah, you know what we're doing with those pine cones. And they basically were sick of the number of rowdy British tourists that came to their city and ruined it. So basically, they banned tourists. They banned I'm not sure if it was just UK tourists. It may well have been, but they certainly banned tourists. Wait, we need to pause this because I have a feeling that someone might throw something into this bear's mouth anytime soon. There we go. There we have it. Woo! Perfect. That was so satisfying. Yeah, and then it's not really as successful when you tried to kick it. Anyway, there was this place in Spain that banned tourists, and then a few months later, all of the local businesses shut down because it turns out, for some reason, who'd have thought that the tourist place needs tourists in order to survive, right? Because they have businesses built on rowdy British people coming in and ordering a load of beer and burgers, like, all right, mate, can I get 2 beers and 2 burgers, por favor, mate? And that's what keeps them in business. And for some reason, when they banned all the tourists, their businesses didn't really continue to thrive. Yeah. And that's a good example of a dichotomy, because you need the tourists. Some places need tourists and they also hate them at the same time. And I just want to reiterate, I completely understand why. There is this reputation that British people have where they'll be having like 5 a.m. pints at the airport. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, I've been there. We've all been there. And then they'll get really drunk and really rowdy on the plane, which is incredibly infuriating. Then they'll go to these cities, tends to be in Spain or just any European country that's close to the UK. We have this sort of ongoing joke that if you want to ruin any European city, just put in a direct flight from England. Because it's cheap and sunny, and British people love cheap and sunny places. And funnily enough, that actually has this effect on, internally, that has an effect on some English places, some British places, mainly seaside towns. Because before, if you wanted to go on holiday and you wanted sun, you would go to these seaside places, so Brighton or Blackpool, for example. But when Ryanair came to life, or basically when cheap international flights to Europe became available, people stopped going to these seaside places and instead went to Spain because it's cheap and you can easily do it. You can get flights to Spain for like £20 or something like that. It's actually obscene. Yeah, so you wonder why they're full of these tourists, because the alternative is getting a train or driving. But realistically, if you want to go to these places, you're probably going to want to drink as well. And the UK is extremely strict on drink driving, extremely strict, rightfully so. But if you want to go on holiday to a sunny place, you could get the train to these seaside towns in the UK, which will cost you about, depending on where you are, it will cost you way more than it should do. And it won't actually be that hot because you're still in the UK. So even if it's sunny, it's probably not going to be that hot. Or alternatively, you can go to a cheap, hot European city and enjoy yourself there, where the beer is also much more affordable as well. Right, I'm just going to pause for a second because this is actually very famous. This is called the Bridge House, okay? And it's a house built on a bridge, okay? Not only is it very aesthetic, but there is actually some lore behind this. And basically, in the 1600s, land tax was based on how much ground your building sat on. So someone had the idea, it's a slightly dodgy idea, but very smart idea, to build that house on top of the river because the water didn't count as taxable land in the same way because it wasn't technically ground. So they were able to build that without paying any sort of tax. And that's why that building exists. Yeah, I'm in a Co-op right now. Another great supermarket, but it felt so weird, almost like naughty, filming inside the shop. But I don't know why. It's not illegal. Even if it was, I wouldn't care, mate. But it's just, I'm glad it was empty. I think because when I film these videos, I definitely try to respect people's privacy. I don't really want to be putting a camera in people's faces. Oh my God, Victoria Sponge. Probably my favourite cake. I love chocolate cake as well, though, but a Victoria Sponge with the tea. Oh my God, perfect. Anyway, when I make these videos, I don't want to be putting a camera in people's faces. And you'll notice that during these walk and talk episodes, I very rarely do that. So I feel a bit naughty, as I say, when I'm filming in close quarters, such as a shop. People go here to do their shopping, not to be filmed. Yeah, I'm buying a newspaper for my dad because he's old and that's what old people do. They read newspapers. And I realized I had to use my phone to pay for this, so I had to pause the footage, but here we are, we're back. Anyway, what were we saying? Yes, so for this reason, for the reason we were speaking about before I got distracted, the seaside towns, they stopped getting tourists and they were so reliant on tourists. Of course, people do live there, but when people started going abroad for their holidays, they lost so much money. And this led to this vicious circle where basically fewer people went there, which means they had less money in the economy, so everything got a bit worse. And then fewer people went there because it was worse, and then they had even less money, and then so on and so on and so on and so on. So that's a shame. That means that we have quite a few sad seaside towns in the UK that have had their heyday. And the heyday is the most successful, popular, or powerful time in something's life. So basically, where it peaks in success. And yeah, that's what happened to these seaside towns. Right, we're going to wrap up the sunny footage here. So that's it. That's beautiful Ambleside for you. It's been a lovely, very chilled day. So what could possibly go wrong? What a beautiful place. I love the sun so much. That was such a relaxing video. I'm sure the rest of it will be like that as well. One day later. Woo! Welcome to part 2. Yeah, this is such a hectic start. So this was the next day, and it was at about 4 p.m. and the sun goes down at 5. So I didn't have much time to get to the place where I wanted to film and to actually shoot the footage before it got dark. So this is me filming whilst cycling. So in my right hand I was holding my phone, and in my left hand I was holding the bike. So one-handed filming while cycling next to a busy road. I mean, that's always going to be carnage, isn't it? But it did lead to some nice footage. Right then, so we're going to somewhere called Rydal Water. And this is one of the many lakes in the Lake District. But first we are going to take a detour because I realised that I haven't shown you any sheep yet, and that cannot stand. So this wasn't planned, by the way. There were just sheep everywhere. So yeah, this was me just innocuously passing a car park. I looked inside and, well, here we are. Here we are, some cute sheep just having their lunch. And this one in particular caught my eye. And also, we caught his eye as well. What a beautiful animal. What should we call him? Let's call him Charles. No, that's too posh. Stephen. No, not Stephen. What should we call this sheep? Peter. This is Peter the sheep. Everyone please say hi to Peter in the comment section. He would really appreciate that. And Peter actually told me as well that he would really appreciate if you could like the video. Peter's words, not mine. That's just what he said to me in sheep language. So I speak that, by the way. So yeah, that's you may as well like and comment for Peter, for Peter's sake. For Pete's sake. That's funny. Anyway, we've now abandoned the bike. Don't worry, we have some more shaky bike footage later, but we're on foot now. And I'm going to be showing you a bit more of the natural side of things here, because as mentioned, the Lake District is predominantly known for its nature. So I had to include some. I had to make sure to get some footage for you of this place. So we are currently making our way to this lake, and look at that tree. I believe that tree was struck by lightning. I believe that, because look how it's broken in a very interesting and unusual way. And I genuinely think someone told me that, and it's believable that it was struck by lightning, because look, how else would you explain that? That's not from an axe. It's not from, I mean, what else could it be from? You know, an extremely strong, robust bird? Probably not. So I think that was actually struck by lightning, which is insane. Anyway, we're just going to go back to the British tourist thing, because I have a few more points on that. So we're speaking about that place in Spain, right, that banned British tourists and then asked for them back after all of their businesses went under because they didn't have the tourists giving them the money. For me personally, I would never go back there because I just wouldn't ever want to be a tourist in a place where I feel unwelcome. And for better or worse, I think that's maybe one of the reasons why I've kind of haven't traveled in Europe that much, because I do get this sense that in some places, British people are not welcome. And I understand it. Of course, there are like historical reasons. We did colonize quite a few countries back in the day, but I don't think that's fair to blame British people now, because obviously we had nothing to do with that, right? But modern day colonization, I guess for us, is going over there and getting really drunk and being a nuisance. And that's bad. But not all British people are like that. But when I do go to some European cities, certain ones, such as certain parts in Spain or in France back in the day. I haven't been there for ages, but France. And also more recently, Prague. So I think Prague was the last city I went to in Europe. Look at that dog. So cute and happy. This was about 6 years ago, okay? And I went there with my friend, and I did feel a bit unwelcome. I felt we were being respectful. Of course we were. We weren't being rowdy. We didn't even really get that drunk. Yet I felt as if I felt as if the members of staff in pretty much all the restaurants and the bars we went to were quite hostile towards us. And it just maybe not want to go back to Prague, which is a shame because it was a really nice place. And I've had several Czech students and they were all lovely. So I've got nothing against Prague. It's just when I went there, I must admit, I did feel a bit unwelcome. And that feeling of hostility really, really makes you never, ever want to return to a place ever again. Which is a shame because normally when you go to these places, you're only there for a week or two. Or in my case, I was there for only 3 days. So you don't have much time to actually form an opinion. And therefore, first impressions matter so much. And first impressions aren't always that reliable because maybe you just caught that waitress or that waiter on a bad day. Maybe before you walked in, there were a bunch of rowdy British tourists that didn't pay the bill and made a nuisance of themselves, and that's why they were feeling a bit hostile towards Brits, right? Or other just tourists in general. And let's say that you went there for that day, you went to this town or this city for a weekend, and that's what happened to you. You're going to think, this place is rubbish. Everyone is like this in this place. Everyone is so mean and rude and unwelcoming, blah, 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 blah. But that might not be the case. If you'd stay there for another month or another weekend, you may have had a completely different experience. And that's just the nature of travel, isn't it? So, actually, I tell a lie. I did go to Europe about a year and a half ago, and that was in Vienna. And I was only there for a weekend, so once again, it's hard to really form an opinion, but I did feel very welcome there. So, yeah, it's one of those. I would love to go to Italy. I love Italian food so much. I feel like Italian food is the best. Who doesn't love Italian food? Pizza, pasta, lasagna, bread, wine. Nah, the Italians, they have it figured out, Yeah. But I feel as if Ambleside doesn't really need the number of tourists that it gets. That was kind of to wrap this whole thing up, right? So some places are a bit more reliant on tourists. Other places just attract a lot of tourists when they don't necessarily need them. I thought Prague's probably quite a good example of that, actually. I don't think they really need tourists, but they get them anyway. And I feel like Ambleside doesn't really need that many tourists to survive, because it has its own charms and there are locals that want to live there. And it's also very easy for locals to turn their noses up at tourists because the positives they bring aren't always tangible and they can be quite hard to see, especially in the short term. So the money they pump into the economy, you can't really see that, can you? It's not like it's going directly into your pocket. Even if you do live there, it probably does help you. If you own a house there, it would do, wouldn't it? But the negatives they bring are instantly visible. So I can see why that happens. Yeah, ducks. I love, one of my favorite things about filming these types of videos is when you see some sort of animal, because it just there's something about seeing animals whilst recording that really brings the footage to life. And this nature is beautiful, right? It looks so, so nice, even if it's an extremely grey and cloudy day. And you know what? I was reluctant to actually film this nature because of the fact that the weather was so bad. It's not even that bad. It's just not sunny. And I normally like to film these in the sun. But I feel like it does actually add something to it. It kind of it gives it a bit more of a moody atmosphere, which I think does actually suit the Lake District quite well. And if you're wondering, yes, I have been. People do swim in that lake. Maybe not in February. That's a bit too cold. Although that being said, I do have a bit of a tradition, actually. Yeah, I need to just pause myself here because I was walking along and look what I saw. Look what I bumped into. The sheep from earlier. I don't even know if those are the sheep from earlier, but the sheep going to work or school or something. I just saw this commotion and I heard loads of ba's in the distance, and this is what it was about. And they saw me and they all scampered off. So we have some camera shy sheep. Not Peter though, he wasn't camera shy, but I guess the rest of them are. Anyway, we're nearing the end of this video, so I'm just going to give a quick summary. Ambleside is brilliant. Loads of pubs. So if you're wondering what the other place, so I got very lost here as well because I was so confused because this isn't the way I came. We're actually we're a level higher than we were before. And the reason why I was looking down is because, well, firstly, because of this, right? So we saw the sheep again. I was like, what? Then it was only then I realized that we had gone a different way back. And this is the road where we actually left the bike earlier. So yeah, Ambleside, really nice pubs up north, especially in the Lake District because they tend to be quite cozy. You go there after a long hike, it's just perfect. Quite a lot of clothes shops, mainly hiking shops though, although that is kind of a genre of fashion in itself. And I mean, ironically, the last walk and talk video we did was in England, right? It was in Bristol. And I mean, the people who live in Bristol, they would actually love these shops, these nature hiking shops there, because that means they can buy their Arc'teryx beanies from there. Everyone in Bristol has one of these hats. Yeah, and this is a hiking brand that turned into a fashion brand. So these hiking shops would actually do incredibly well in Bristol. Right, so we're back to the hectic bike footage. I'd say that Ambleside in general is an older person's place due to the fact that it's not really that lively, it's not really that crazy, it's mainly to do with nature. There is actually a small university here, if you can believe it. And of course that would attracts young people, but a chiller type of student, I reckon. So if you love going out and you love socializing and you love being in the hustle and bustle of a busy city, you probably won't go to Ambleside University. Yeah, that's not actually the name of it, but the university in Ambleside, right? That's going to attract people who love nature instead. And of course, the things that you're going to study there are all going to be focused on nature. So if you are looking to study here, then definitely look that up. It's an extremely small university due to the fact that the village, not the town. No, sorry, the town, not the village. Oh, goodness, is so small. Yeah, this is basically what I was looking at for most of the journey. It's hectic, right? And actually, we're going to wrap this up in a very neat bow, because do you remember earlier on in the video, we were walking along a bridge and I showed you a gate. I'll put it on the screen now. Well, in a minute, we're actually going to complete the circuit. I had no idea that this road led to that place, but here we are. This is the bridge. This is the bridge that we were at earlier. So everything has come full circle. Literally, which is the American way of saying that. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. We're going to wrap things up. I hope that you have enjoyed Ambleside in this video. Now, I did make sure to integrate some useful pieces of vocabulary in natural places while showing you what the UK is actually like, because I think that's the best way of doing it. And if you enjoy this style of learning and you want something a bit more structured, then listen up. So if you are planning on coming to the UK, or maybe you already live here and you'd like to feel a bit more comfortable with the tool, with actually being able to understand real British English, so the expressions and pieces of vocabulary that we actually use, the things that aren't taught in textbooks, or maybe you just like to understand real British accents or the small cultural things that British people are actually known for. So for example, how indirect we are, and how you simply asking for something in the wrong way might be seen as rude or offensive. Or maybe you just want to be able to relate to British people a bit more and get an understanding of the culture and the humour and the language, the things that actually help you to feel native. So if any of this applies to you, I would highly recommend checking out my Real British English online course. Yes, this is an advert, but it's a good advert because I spent all of last year making this course and it's genuinely life-changing. So very quickly, it has 5 modules, over 210 lessons. They're all incredibly detailed and actually focused on real British English. So all the things you actually need to know if you're coming to the UK or if you're already living here. And that's why it took me over a year to make, because it's amazing. It will genuinely change your life. Anyway, the link to that is in the top comment with a full trailer and all of the information. And there is also a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it completely risk-free. Check it out. Okay, advert over. I just wanted to mention that because I've had so many positive reviews from the course. And if you enjoyed this style of learning, I think that you will really like it as well, because it can be daunting going to a new country, especially one that's full of weird British people with weird British accents who do weird British things. Yeah. Right then, thank you so much for watching. I post new videos every single Friday, so if you have enjoyed this one, please make sure to like, subscribe and comment down below. A couple of weeks ago, I made a similar one exploring Bristol in England, which is an amazing city, a lot livelier than this one, a slightly different vibe. And that video will be appearing on the screen, so I would definitely recommend checking out that one as well. Cool, thank you again, and I will see you next week for another video. Goodbye.